Okay, everybody.
The Catholic channel Sirius XM 129 presents The Jen Fulwiler Show.
You guys can keep telling no one about your Catholic faith. And when you get to the pearly gates, St. Peter is going to say, like, well, I would let you in, but did you know that your neighbor could have lived a different life? He was open to hearing that there's another way to live, but because you didn't tell him about the Catholic Christian worldview, he ended up spending years, like, taking his dog out in the baby Bjorn. And that's on you, and you don't get into heaven because of that.
And now, from Austin, Texas, here's Jen Fulwiler.
Hey there, and welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show, your source for fresh takes on pop culture and the spiritual life. Your friend Jen joining you here from 3 to 4 East. That is noon to 1 Pacific, a little different for new listeners. I'm normally with you 2 hours a day, every day on Tuesdays. Lucky you, you guys get Cardinal Dolan there in the first hour. And so on Tuesdays only, I have a 1 hour show, and that means I have all the same great content, half the time to get to it. So we always jump right in. Some people ask, Jen, that's so weird. Every other daily show on this channel has a consistent schedule. Why on Tuesdays are you only on 1 hour? Very short answer there. Cardinal Dolan had his show first before I came onto this channel. And do you know how hard it is to get a cardinal to be able to sit down and do live media? There was no way that the Cardinal Archbishop of New York could rearrange his schedule for my radio show. So that is why we do things a little differently on Tuesdays. So I will jump right in. Don't forget that we have full episodes of this show available on demand on the SiriusXM app. You can also listen live on the app, and most SiriusXM subscriptions now come with access to the app. That used to be a whole separate thing that you had to add, but that most SiriusXM subscriptions now come with it. So go to SiriusXM.com, set up your account, and you can listen live on the app. While you're online, while you're looking at websites, go to naughtycornertour.com. I have tickets left for my stand-up comedy tour to the second Kansas City show. I had to add one. And then to Columbus, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri. A bunch of stuff has sold out, but I do have tickets left if you are in those locations or can get there. Join me at those shows. naughtycornertour.com is the website. And I know that a lot of people have travel plans coming up. Over the holidays, you're heading somewhere for Christmas, you're going somewhere. And I like traveling in general. But when I think about traveling during the holidays, it makes me lose my will to live. It makes me feel like I like family, but not that much. I mean, maybe we just need to stay home. And so I'm very glad that we have Marika Flatt back with us. She came on to talk about family traveling generally a few months ago. I got a bunch of good feedback from that. I told her she has to come back by. She has to come back by and talk to us about how we can survive holiday travel when we're traveling with the family. Marika, you've got your work cut out for you. Welcome back to the show.
It is so great to be here. I love it here. Thanks for having me back.
And you mentioned you've got a little bit of a cold, but I said I think it's a good sound. I think your voice has this very mysterious sound to it, so people will tune in and say, "Ooh, who is this mysterious guest that Jen has on today?"
Hopefully, they're not plugging their ears.
Right? No. Well, and you sound like a lot of our listeners. I mean, everyone right now has a cold. I actually induced allergies in myself yesterday with my awesome scented candle, which is currently burning. I'm doing it again, so
which
I will sound like
amazing.
Right? And thank you. Okay, because yesterday I didn't have an in-studio guest, so nobody could verify what a good decision it was to keep this candle burning, even though it was triggering allergies. But you're saying this is the right move. It's the right call.
It is, and I can smell it, so I'm not too congested. So
right.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
peaceful.
I went online to look up another candle because I wanted to get one. There is a company that makes candles that smell like certain locations. Like if you're from Kentucky, you can get one that smells like the mountain air or whatever. They have one for New York City.
And I saw your social media post about this.
Yeah, this is what people miss when they don't follow me on Instagram. And I was saying, look, I love New York City as much as anyone, but I don't think anyone goes there for the smells.
Does it
right?
smell like a gutter?
Right, exactly. So maybe not every location needs a scented candle that smells like it. Now, Marika, you've got 3 kids. Are you traveling this holiday season?
We are, but road tripping.
Okay, road trip. Yeah.
Not air travel.
Now, one of the things that I think can really trip us up when we do any kind of travel, especially during the holidays, is getting fixated on our own expectations. And this is one of the things I wanted to follow up on and explore more from when you were on last time, that, in our world today, there's this big idea out there that we shouldn't focus on material things as much as we should focus on memories and experiences. Exactly. And I think that's a great message. And I agree with that message. That wonderful. Don't worry about blowing a bunch of money on fancy gifts for your kids and things like that, especially during the holidays. Let's just focus on making memories. Lovely message. The problem is that we can start to get really obsessive about our plans for making memories. Like if you are, let's say, going to visit your in-laws in a different state for Christmas, and you are determined to get there in time to do a magical hike through the scenic part of where they live, and then your flight gets delayed, so then you're not going to be able to do the hike, it's very easy for your kids' memories to end up being mom angry and yelling at everyone because the memories were not being made. I mean, do you as a mother, do you fall into that temptation to get obsessive about how this is all going to go?
The funny thing is that I also find myself in that frame of mind if I'm preparing to entertain for a party.
Yeah.
I can get frantic over the way the house looks hours leading up. And then I stop and think, I'm ruining the joy of this experience. And sometimes my kids will call me out on that. But that is absolutely true. I mean, you really have to think about, what's the ultimate goal here? And why are we doing this? Why are we going to visit these relatives? And so much of what we feel like on the outside might seem important over the holidays, really, I mean, is it as important as really having a peaceful day with your family? Is the perfect dish as important as really making that memory and having that good experience? I think it's all about reminding ourselves throughout the process. A year from now, what do we want our family to think about or remember from this December?
And in particular, I think it is so important to really lock it into our brains that our kids, or for some of my listeners, they're thinking about their grandkids. They really want to have special memories with their grandkids this holiday season. I think it's very important to remember that one of the big things that your children will remember about you and your legacy is just your mood and your personality. Yes. So if you do get the magical family hike on the calendar for this Christmas season, but you are angry the whole time because you got started late and the kids couldn't find the right clothes, and you're just in a miserable mood and you're complaining and saying, well, this didn't go this way and I wanted to bring this snack and I didn't end up getting it. Well, that's what your kids are going to remember. And it backfires because you're trying to make a magical memory, but all people will remember is you being angry. And I keep using the hiking example because that actually happened earlier this year, Marika, that we tried to go hiking as a family. Total dumpster fire. I was so angry. I was yelling at everyone. I mean, it just...
You can still feel
and so my kid,
the emotion.
That is my kid's memory is mom was in a horrible mood, mad at the world, mad at us. So I really think that one of the greatest mind frames that my parent and grandparent listeners can get into, especially if they're traveling, but with whatever they're doing this holiday season, is just think about what what side of your personality do you want your children and grandchildren to remember from this holiday season? So if you have 1 year after we got the Christmas tree decorated fairly nicely, the cat jumped up on the Christmas tree, knocked the whole thing over, broke an heirloom ornament that was irreplaceable. You cannot replace this ornament. And I tried to do a good job of saying, oh, well, that's not, it's not the reason for this season. And I think we need to get in that mentality of saying, what mood, what tone do I want my children to remember, and focus on that. Yes. And don't focus so much on, did the tree look perfect? Did the meal come out perfectly? But say, my children will remember me being happy and joyful even when things fell apart.
I so love that you bring up the grandparents too, because that's a really interesting dynamic. Because if we think about our parents and we think about the fact that normally, you know, they're spending their days in a quiet house and they kind of make their own schedule. And when you throw all the kids and some of the chaos in, it can very easily get them out of sorts. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind, both for the parents and the grandparents, is that, you know, that's not their norm.
Right.
And for us, I mean, we have our kids running around us all the time. And so, you know, we can deal with ignoring them and doing this other thing. But it's harder for grandparents. And so I think that that's so true. I mean, I know I hear what my kids say, you know, in those situations, and they would much rather their grandparent just sit down on the floor and play a board game with them than cook the perfect dish in the kitchen.
Yeah. And I think that I remember as a kid, when I put myself in my child's mind, and I remember being 8, 10, 12, those ages, I remember what a gift it was to me as a kid to be around adults who were happy with their family, happy that I was there. Every now and then I would encounter acquaintances where it just seemed like their parents just weren't happy. And I don't mean like struggling with clinical depression or something like that, but they were just not enjoying their lives, not even trying to enjoy their lives. And you kind of feel that as a kid, if your parent is walking around just like not grateful for their circumstances and not happy about the way anything is going. And I think that we don't need to get too caught up in anything else if we just approach this holiday season with the mentality, I am going to be grateful. I am going to be happy to the extent that I can. And I use this word loosely. I mean, this is our first holiday season after my dad's unexpected death. So I don't mean that I'm going to be walking around singing Christmas carols all the time, but just trying to be grateful for what I have, enjoy my family. And I really think that it is as simple as that. But I struggle with this because I have 6 kids. Marika, you have 3 kids. And the reality is there is a lot that has to be done. And I think sometimes people oversimplify this and say, well, you know, Jesus is the reason for the season. Let's only focus on that. And it's like, okay, but we do have a tradition of like doing gifts for Christmas and someone has to buy them. And so, Marika, this is a little bit of an extension from travel, but how do you get done everything that, you know, should be done? I mean, again, it's specious to say that there's nothing that we need to do during the holiday season. How do you get it all done, but not, again, start to fixate and obsess about everything being done perfectly?
So I'm a planner, and I will keep my eyes open throughout the year for gift ideas so that by the time I get to the first week of December, most of the gift buying is done. And that gives me a lot of peace of mind. And in the first weekend, you know, when I don't have as much as maybe the second weekend, parties start and things like that, I'll spend time wrapping presents that weekend. I'll try to get things done before the deadline because the worst thing for me is to wait until that last weekend and then have to go out. And now, granted, I mean, there's always the thing like, I have to go get stocking stuffers or I have to go get these last minute ingredients. But I really do try to plan ahead as much as possible and know that when those days get here, the 24th and 25th, I want to have everything that I can put aside and done so that, yes, I know I'm going to cook and, you know, we'll go to mass and we'll have a nice evening. And on Christmas Day, maybe we just want to sit and watch Christmas movies all day, you know? And so we do stay home for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day for that reason of just kind of having that peaceful holiday. Now, beforehand and afterwards, we'll be with family and driving here, driving there, and doing all that fun stuff. But those 2 days are protected for peaceful time.
Another thing, so I like your idea of planning ahead. I've never done that. It sounds amazing, though. One of the things that can help us procrastinators that has helped me this year is I know a friend, for example, who scheduled a gift wrapping day with a friend of hers. I think it's like December 18th or something. She has this scheduled. And so then that forces her to get her Christmas shopping done early. And I've gotten some help too. I asked my mom if she could do some gift wrapping. Let's get that on the calendar quite a few days before Christmas. And honestly, I would be shopping on December 24th if I did not have this on the calendar. So that's one tip I offered to my fellow procrastinators is just get something on the calendar that involves someone else so that you kind of can't flake.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like you said, you enlisted your mom.
That's essential.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing is, for those of us who maybe did not plan ahead as much as we could, one of the things I have started doing this year that is giving me a surprising amount of peace is I am writing down the lessons I am learning. Like today, for example, I will admit I'm pretty stressed out about, I've got a book deadline. My publisher needs something for my book. I've got a bunch of stuff with my stand-up comedy tour, and I've got Christmas coming up for 6 kids. This is a lot. I have a lot going on. I'm pretty overwhelmed. And so what I'm doing is I'm just making notes of saying, okay, here is what I'm stressed out about. What could I have done differently? Is there something in early November I could have taken care of that would help me not have so much on my plate this first week in December? And I don't do it in a spirit of shame or of beating myself up. It's fine. I've been busy. It is what it is. But do you use Gmail? I think probably. Okay. So many of our listeners use Gmail. I'm telling you guys, you have got to get in on Gmail's snooze feature. You can now snooze emails. So what I did, Marika, and this is like a life tip show. I'm changing people's lives with this sage advice.
Hacks.
So what I did is this morning, actually, I wrote up some lessons of saying, okay, if I could do this holiday season over again, I would have started on our family Christmas newsletter the second week in November. I'd like to start that then. I would like to get some Christmas card stuff ordered a little bit earlier, blah, blah, blah. I wrote all this up. And I sent myself the email, and I snoozed it until November 1st, 2020.
Oh, that's so smart.
And so this is going to pop up on November 1st, and it's a little letter from Jen, December 2019.
Dear self.
Dear Jen of November 2020. Hope life is going well. Here's what we learned. And it is like some little instructions to myself of saying, if you want to not be so overwhelmed in the 2020 holiday season, then do these things. I wish I had done these things. I wish I had thought of this starting in early November. And this is sort of a general life tip. I'm starting to do this more and more, that I send myself emails of something I want to remember in the future, and then I snooze it until that day, so that will pop up.
I've done that too.
Life hack.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that I'm no Emily Post. I mean, I seriously am not one of those people who, and I really don't do Christmas cards very often either. But I do try to kind of compensate for that by, I'm really good at reaching out to people in person. So I kind of overcompensate with that effort and don't worry as much about the whole Christmas card thing, because I did that a few years ago and it did stress me out. So I guess I spend more time on just the individual communications with people, especially during the holidays. And, I think that ultimately that's probably what people will remember me by more than a Christmas card. So I would say that there's a lot of things that are kind of on the more traditional side of the holidays that I don't put as much emphasis on, because I am putting a little bit more emphasis on just kind of the building those day-to-day experiences and doing things. We talked about this a little bit last time I was here, but something that we just recently discovered as a family is having those experiences one-on-one with our kids. So we're doing a little bit more of that this December as well. And I'm really looking forward to those times where I'm just taking one of our kids off to do something fun and having that very dedicated one-on-one time with the kids. And I just think that works for us right now, with the ages of our kids and, where we're at with the dynamic of our family. That's working really well, instead of just trying to smash everybody together all the time. Giving them time just with us.
And it doesn't have to be something complicated.
No,
it doesn't
not
have
at
to
all.
be a big trip or something fancy. I mean, just even sometimes I'll just take one kid to the grocery store with me, and those can be very meaningful moments. It doesn't have to be, you take them to the, I don't know, like a big touring show that's in town or something.
Yeah, it could be things that you already have to get done anyway. A day of Christmas shopping, but you stop and get a coffee, or having one of them. I have one of my kids who loves to wrap presents with me. So just the things that already you're going to be doing anyway. It doesn't have to be elaborate. I mean, it could be something very special for that child that you're taking them on a little road trip to do something special outside of town, but it doesn't have to be big. And it's just more about that experience.
Yeah. And Marika, people can look up the writing you do. You write for Texas Lifestyle Magazine. That's texaslifestylemag.com. Obviously, we have listeners all over the country and in Canada, but you do a lot of writing that is relevant to anyone. It's not just for people in Texas. And one of the things I hear you saying is that it sounds like you've really done an inventory on what your God-given gifts are. I've been talking a lot about the concept of having a blue flame, some passion that God has given you, and you can have multiple blue flames. Just some way that you like to give back that makes a difference in the world, that really inspires you when you do it. And I actually think the holidays and the overwhelm that can come with them can actually be a great chance to discover what you're good at and to hone in on that and to start to utilize that. So, for example, you said you don't do Christmas cards. It's just, that's just not your strength that was stressing you out. And I'm the opposite. I'm a writer by background. I love anything that resembles publishing, things like that. You will get my Christmas card. I think you're on my list, so you'll get a Christmas card. I love it. I love the whole thing. I love staying up till 2:00 in the morning, writing my little notes, putting labels on envelopes, every single aspect of it. I love. And so for me, that is something that really works for me. Whereas I have plenty of friends like you that Christmas cards are they're just not their thing. They're not into that. And you prefer in-person experiences, things like that. I have a friend who she always wanted to be a party planner. She's never professionally done that, but she loves the idea. So she hosts a big Christmas party. It's just what she wants to do. It's something that she enjoys. And so I think that, a lot of people say, well, how do I know what gifts God has given me? How do I know what ways I'm supposed to be contributing? I think the holidays are actually a great way to figure that out, because you say, what are the aspects of the holidays that I can really connect with? Do you really love decorating the tree? Do you really love the idea of going out and singing Christmas carols? Do you really love the one-on-one, planning experiences for your kids? I think you can actually learn a lot about what your hidden talents are by exploring that during the holidays.
Right. It's almost like an audit of what brings you joy. And it's funny that you say Christmas caroling, because after Mass last Sunday, I asked my daughter, I said, what if we go Christmas caroling this year? And she looked at me like I was insane. She said, nobody Christmas carols anymore. I said, but what if we could start a new tradition? And I was going to tell you, I am flashing back to 7 years ago, December, which was right after my dad passed away. And I had this massive need to create new traditions.
Oh, yeah. I feel that. My first holiday without my dad. Yeah, I'm ready to burn down all of our traditions and just do it all differently now.
It's liberating.
Yeah.
It really, I just remember that feeling like it was yesterday of, okay, I'm missing something here. My heart is missing a piece. So I need to fill it with something new, something different. And so that was the first Christmas we ever took a trip over the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was kind of like, you know what? Let's just do things. Let's mix it up. It's already mixed up for, no fault of our own. So let's just do something different and create that new tradition. And one of the things that I got the most feedback on from our talk last time was purchasing airline tickets for kids as Christmas gifts.
Oh, yeah, that's
People
right.
really love that idea. Yeah. And, I just think, why not? That's something that will give them that experiential learning opportunity and those memories. And why not create new traditions at times where you might feel like you're getting a little stagnant for one reason or another? It doesn't have to be the loss of a parent. It could be something else that's causing you to feel like you just need to mix things up and do things a little bit differently.
And I think, Marika, this is so important, because I think that when it comes to the holidays, we often get overly attached to our traditions. I think especially as Catholics, sometimes we can get it in our head that all good Catholic families do XYZ, when really like this is not a fundamental part of our faith at all. Like, you just have it in your head that this is what Catholics do. So you're insisting on doing this. Like, when exactly you open presents, like, it doesn't matter. You can change that if it's not working for your family. And my husband, Joe, and I found over the past few years, I will be totally honest, I have not enjoyed Christmas. Like, it has not been a happy holiday for me because it's just been so much work. And last Christmas, Joe and I looked at each other and we said, like, this is miserable. Like, we understand, of course, sacrificing as parents, like, it's all about the kids. I mean, we don't mind that to some extent, but this was really getting to be just chaos, and it was not a holiday we looked forward to. And so the Christmas evening, last Christmas, he and I sat down and we said, we are changing this.
Good.
And we are going to keep making changes until we find a Christmas experience that works for us.
Good.
And we're like, we are willing to reevaluate everything. Like, we know a family, they stopped opening Christmas presents on Christmas and they do it on Epiphany, which is, my dad grew up in Mexico and he said that's what they did down there. Like, he's like, nobody opened presents on Christmas where he lived in Mexico. He said it was always Epiphany. So so we get this idea that it's a good Christian Catholic thing to like open presents Christmas morning. Well, there are a lot of Catholic countries where people wait till Epiphany because that's when the baby Jesus got his presents. So the point is, we've been talking about, we actually might, we're a very late evening family. Nobody in our family is an early riser. And that's one of the things we looked at. We said, you know what? We do not like opening presents in the morning. We don't like doing anything in the morning. So maybe for us, we might actually have our big present opening be maybe right before midnight mass on Christmas Eve. I'm not sure that we'll do it, but we're thinking about that. But the process I had to go through was to let go of my attachment to the idea of opening presents on Christmas morning. Because I just had it in my head. It's like, this isn't even really Christmas if you don't open presents Christmas morning with 6 kids. Give me a break. But then I took a step back and said, does anyone in my family want this? Did the kids even want this? I don't think anyone wants this. So the point is, if for my fellow people who find themselves very stressed during the holidays, I want to encourage you to examine everything you
Absolutely.
do. Everything
Yes.
you do, other than the holy days of obligation, other than going to mass, it is all up for grabs. All of it.
Absolutely. You know, my family grew up opening gifts on Christmas Eve, and then we would wake up
The gifts?
all the gifts
Really?
except what comes from Santa.
Oh,
So what comes from Santa was there under the tree on Christmas morning, but all the gifts that were wrapped and exchanged happened on Christmas Eve. And I just grew up thinking that everybody in the world did that until I was probably an adult, and my husband thought that was absolutely ridiculous. You know, what? Why do you do this? Well, he agreed to adopt that tradition, and that's what we do as a family. Is we have gifts on Christmas Eve. But I'll tell you, a few years ago, I just really was feeling like there's too much stuff. We don't need all this stuff. We need to kind of get back to what's important. And we set our kids down at the beginning of the month and said, we need to do things a little bit differently this year. And here's some ideas we have. What do you think? And one of the ideas that we had that particular year was to, instead of giving them, you know, whatever the average number of gifts that they get to open on Christmas Eve, let's cut that in half. And we're going to basically gift you this amount of money that you're going to find a charity that you want to donate that to. And we're basically going to cut the gift giving in half this year. And there was a little bit of a silent pause on their part, but they bought into it. And ultimately, they loved doing that year. And they got to pick the charity. They got to go shopping. One of them was Carrying Hope, which is a local charity. They make backpacks for kids that are in the foster care system.
Oh, I've heard it. This is a great charity. Yeah,
it really is. I love this charity. Yeah. And so part of that process is going shopping to build your backpack for these kids.
Oh, that's so cool.
And 2 out of 3 of my kids chose that one that year. And they had such a great time going shopping.
And I bet they didn't miss their presents.
They didn't. You know, they have so much. They don't need more things. They don't need more stuff. But it was kind of getting that buy-in early on in the month of, all right, this is what we're doing. What do you think? Or, asking them, do you have other ideas? Because, we're spending too much money on ourselves. There's too much effort on A, B, or C. What do you think? How could we solve this? And if they have a little bit of buy-in, they're much more willing to make those changes in tradition, to sit down and say, this isn't really working for our family. What can we do instead around gift opening or the amount of time we spend in the kitchen versus together? What are some things? I mean, kids are smart. They can come up with some good solutions.
Right. And I think a lot of times, Marika, we get ourselves wrapped up in this idea that I have to do XYZ tradition for the kids or grandkids for some of my listeners. Like with us opening presents Christmas morning, when my husband first suggested, he said, what if we did this at a different time of day? I was like, whoa. I didn't know you would hate Christmas. Like what on earth is happening? And I was like, oh, but the children. And then I realized, no, my children aren't morning people either. Nobody wants this.
Yeah.
I just had this idea that I'm doing it for the kids. The kids love this. But then when I evaluated it, I realized, no, I'm just fixated on this. My kids don't even really care about this that much. And like you said, when we bring our children into it, especially early in the month, this is a good time to have this conversation. It's not too late. You can do it tonight to say, okay, guys, look, we're getting really stressed. Are there some things we could cut that you guys don't really care about? And then maybe are there some simple things we could add?
Yeah.
That, like your idea of donating to charities, fewer gifts, more charitable contributions. And I think you'd be amazed at what your kids' attitudes on these things actually are. I think a lot of times.
Right. And things that they could
surprise
care
us.
less about.
Right.
I mean, we eat a nice Christmas Eve dinner. We eat a nice Christmas Day meal, but that's not the focus for my kids. What are we having for these meals? And I know there's a lot of people who maybe they have a traditional meal for Christmas Day and they have to make 10 different items and it's always got to be the same thing. And oh my gosh, what if the store is out of this one ingredient that I need? And just, their head explodes. And I'm just thankful that that's not something that I've adopted and passed down to my kids. It's kind of like, oh, well, what do we feel like having? Maybe we just feel like mixing it up and, instead of doing a traditional Christmas Eve dinner, let's do tamales. Let's do, one year we made our own pizzas. I mean, it's just like whatever sounds good that we can all kind of do together. That's more important than what that meal is or looks like.
Yeah. And Marika, before we run out of time, I think that this is actually a good tie-in to kind of wrap things up, that it goes back to what we started talking about with travel and how a lot of people are traveling this season. And I think one of the things that makes travel stressful is that when we get hung up on our expectations, when we get hung up on our plans that, we had to arrive in the city at this time and now it's a disaster because the flight is delayed. And it's what you're talking about. If we get hung up on, no, I have to cook this dinner, even if this dinner is taking up way too much time and really stressing you out. Is it a fair summary of kind of a lot of what you've said today, that the secret, I think, to having a peaceful and happy holiday season is to let go of the box checking mentality that like Christmas didn't happen unless I check these boxes, and say, you know what? It's about sharing love with the people in my life, showing them that I am happy and grateful that they are here, and just savoring each moment, even if that moment involves making pizza instead of the roast for dinner, and saying, you know what, I'm going to be grateful for this pizza and I'm going to be in a great mood, even if I burnt the roast and all my Christmas dinner plans fell apart. Is that a good summary?
Yeah. My 12-year-old still likes to snuggle with me at night sometimes. And he was snuggling last night and he said, I love everything about December except school. I said, yes, that's right. I love that you love everything, and he started talking about, and I love that we get to do this and that we get to do that. And some of the stuff that he was talking about that make the biggest difference to him are not like traditional things. They're, something that his Boy Scout troop is going to do to donate for other people. And so, I think it just is about focusing on what brings you joy, what brings your family joy. If, if travel is part of that, then by all means do it, but do it as stress-free as possible and make those kids pack their own bags.
Oh, yes. Good final tip. Let the kids do their own packing. I do that. You can imagine with 6 kids.
Give them a list.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd say once they're above, I don't know, like 8 and above, at least my kids are around that age, they can usually handle it. Well, Marika, this has been a great chat. I'm so glad you stopped by. Tell us where people can look you up online.
TexasLifestyleMag.com. That's our daily online magazine, and our special travel issue is up there in the corner.
And it has good stuff for people all over the country and Canada. It's not only for Texans.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So TexasLifestyleMag.com. Thank you so much for stopping by. We'll chat with you again soon.
Thanks. Great to be here.
All right. Take care. We will be back with more right after this here on The Jen Fulwiler Show.